a good week of training. I would say a really focused week of training. Obviously have to have the opportunity to evaluate our performance versus Seattle, take away some of the things that we needed to learn, and apply them during the training week. Look forward to Chicago, some of the challenges that they're going to present. Work through that. But a group that I think came back this week with a real focused mentality, and a group that was committed to getting better. And as we continue through the week, we're definitely addressing those things and getting better.
Great. We'll start with questions in the room, then go to Zoom as always, and go ahead and ask two if you have them.
BJ, you're facing off against Greg Berhalter, obviously long-term head coach, and have you talked to him? What are some of the thoughts and sort of expectations for this match against him?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, listen, Greg's somebody I have a great relationship with. I would say as a friend, as a mentor, as a colleague. So somebody who I'm close with, someone who we talk all the time because we have our own you have your own personal relationships and our families and stuff. So again, somebody I have tremendous respect for. But I would presume he would say the same thing. It's not BJ versus Greg or Greg versus BJ this week. It's a really good Chicago team versus what I would call a really good Nashville team that are going to compete. And I think you've seen a real strategic way of picking up players in Chicago. The additions that they've made have been great. The team plays with a really clear identity, a solid defensive team, and a team that has a lot of attacking talent. And I think with the clear identity that they've built, it also gives them flexibility and adaptability, and it's a difficult team to prepare for throughout the week.
And then just in terms of Walker Zimmerman, what's the latest on him? We know it's concussion protocol, so I know it's not perfect, but
that's the update. Again, continuing to be day to day as we follow sort of the protocol that we must follow and he must follow, and we'll continue to providing all of the support and doing everything. So again, it's just kind of a day to day basis with Walker.
Okay.
BJ, how much the fact that you guys know each other so well, you and Greg, especially in terms of soccer, become a play at a game like this? I mean, I'm sure he's probably different on the way he used to do his work at the national team. How much of that comes into play?
I mean, I think philosophically how someone looks at a game, and we've shared so much time together that you probably look at how you look at the game and how you analyze the game. But one of his greatest strengths is how meticulously he game plans and is detailed, and how flexible he can be. And you can see that if you watch Chicago across the games, is how they play with a very clear identity on what they want to do and what they want to accomplish. But they can do it in so many ways, and that he's going to set his team up the best way to have those players have success. And so for us, it's not. I don't think it's the historical or personal connection is going to dictate what we can expect on Saturday night.
Now, in terms of Nashville, I mean, after what's been happening, the good games, the so-so games, like the first half again in Seattle, how much have you had to kind of work or change anything before you face Chicago here at home?
Yeah, I look at it as this is part of sort of the growing process that we're going to have as we continue to sort of, build who we want to be. When we talk about, it's starting chapter 6 this year. It's new, it's fresh. Our trajectory is not just going to be straight up. We know that there's going to be moments that we learn from, and there's going to be moments that we don't play as consistent as we want to. And as we continue to go through the season, that's our goal, is to just play more consistently. But I don't think, we're not in a position where we think we need to change what we do. I think we just have to continue to learn and grow, get better at what we do so we can do it more consistently. But we know it's part of any development and learning curve, that it's not linear and just goes straight up. And sometimes in those moments that you speak about in Seattle, some of those are some of the deepest learning moments that you can have. And I think this week the team has responded great to it, really focused, having good conversations, deep conversations on how we can improve.
We'll go to Ben on Zoom.
Yeah, BJ, sorry if you've my daughter in the background. Just looking back at the Seattle game, I know you wanted to play to keep the field pretty compact and kind of narrow, and it felt like they were able to maybe exploit that with a little bit. I'm just curious from your perspective after reviewing it, what do you think they did maybe differently that allowed them to kind of exploit those wide areas that other teams you've played so far maybe haven't done to that same effect?
Yeah, I think they were able to, I thought they did a good job of being able to play, access their center midfielders a little bit, make us get compact centrally, and then open up wide areas and create wide overloads. So I thought that, they did a really good job in that. And then, with their pressure, they were able to compact the field defensively. So again, for us, it's about, being able to recognize those moments quicker and earlier, and understanding that we may have to, if we can play behind, we can play behind a little bit more and be a threat there. If we want to play a little bit wider, we can have to play, get some support in the wide areas to play. And again, all part of that learning curve of continuing to develop us so that we're able to all recognize these moments in a quicker fashion, which will then allow us to play in a more consistent way. But really happy with the direction and the progress that we're going over these first, when you look at it from a 9-game standpoint.
And then just wanted to ask about Ryan McCosker really quick. I think he played 60-something minutes for Huntsville, and I know you said he's kind of been getting closer and closer over the last few weeks. What are you expecting from him once he does return and is able to get on the field? How do you expect him to kind of impact this rotation that you have in midfield?
Yeah, obviously he's going to give us good competition in the midfield. He's a player that I think feels comfortable coming low, getting the ball, facing forward, has the ability to play balls behind the back line, has the ability to switch the ball. His long passing is a real weapon. And then defensively, I think he's good at closing down opponents, dueling, so can bring a bit of bite or energy type into that midfield as well. So again, as he continues to get fully healthy and fully fit, those are sort of the attributes I think he can kind of come in and deploy for us.
Go ahead, Nick.
BJ, you mentioned the post-match press conference in Seattle that you were just rotating Eddie and Patrick to get some sort of rotation out there. Coming into the season, just curious, did you have the mindset or game plan on paper, looking at certain teams that finished, let's say, bottom 5 last year, that you'd have a certain midfield pairing for that? Obviously injuries happen, but do you ever have something like that going into the season where you have maybe a Eddie and a Whitemeyer or a Yazbek and a Costa type thing for certain, specific teams, that is?
I think for us, it's just about listening to kind of what the team needs on this week-to-week basis, and not really getting ahead of ourselves, looking at certain teams or what level certain teams are. I think it's we're glad that we have depth. Glad that we have guys competing for spots. We have confidence that we can put in multiple players in multiple positions. We've seen that. We've seen those guys, that group that comes off the bench or that group that gets their number called with a next man up mentality, make impacts for us. So for us as a team, we're confident that we have the depth to make impacts. But I would say more or less it's reading and communicating with the group and sort of listening to what the group needs as we go through the weeks versus pre-planned opponent to opponent rotations.
And obviously coming into this weekend, getting a big win would be huge for the team. But you have a lot of games coming up in May. It's about 3 to 4 days in between each game. Just can you explain the importance of just getting quality minutes in this weekend's game to kind of set the tone for May?
Yeah, we know that we're going to have guaranteed, I think it's 8 games in May, with hopefully an opportunity to advance in the Open Cup to make it 9 games in May. This is a good catalyst. We're hoping that this can be a good catalyst on Saturday night. We know for us, our focus is to make sure that we apply, a good game plan and a good performance and match it with the right mentality in the group. And I think when we're able to marry those two things together, that's when we're at our best. That's our expectation competing against Chicago on Saturday night at home, is to put on a performance that is I would say, indicative of who we are, both from an intensity and mentality standpoint, and from a quality of soccer standpoint, and allow that to sort of build as a catalyst, as when we transition and move to
Training's
May.
gone well. It's obviously been a bit of a different week after the result against Seattle, but we kind of turned that page now, reflected on it enough, and looking forward to a good Chicago side who probably should have more points than what they deserve. Got a good squad, a lot of depth, and we're prepared for that.
Great, thanks. We'll start in the room and then go to Zoom. Go ahead.
Yeah, Patrick, as a player, obviously you want to play every match, every minute. So there's been a lot of rotation in those two midfield spots that you occupy. How do you handle that, and how do you kind of work with the rest of the group?
Yeah, obviously, as an individual, you want to play as much as you can, and you want to contribute to the team as much as you can. And I think there are two other good players, or to be honest, there's probably four other good players that could play that position. But at the moment, yeah, it's kind of me, Gaston, and Eddie on a bit of a rotation, which is completely understandable. It's been a message communicated by the coach that everyone's going to play a role and everyone has a responsibility in this team. And I think we just take it with a lot of professionalism. You need to just do well in training, and when you come on and get a chance, you gotta make a statement to the coach. And I think we've all done that in our own way. And obviously, every opportunity I get on the field is a chance to show the coaching staff and the players that I feel like I should be playing every game, and that's just the intention from myself. And if that's not the case, just to be respectful about it. Obviously, understand the overarching idea that this is a team sport, and you just got to contribute from the bench too, if that's the case. So, yeah.
And then just in terms of, it's been almost a year since you signed here in Nashville. So how are you adapting in Nashville, and how are you enjoying living here?
Yeah, Nashville's really great as a city. There's always something going on. Had a lot of visitors, a lot of family come, which is good. And in terms of adapting to the league, that's, I think, slowly coming. I'm enjoying the MLS. I think it's very different, but it's so unique, and I think game by game I'm getting still better and better, and it's just a matter of time before I think myself and the squad itself clicks completely, and I think we have the capability to do that and go really far away this year.
Claudio?
Patrick, you just said that the MLS is very different from what you used to. How about the coach? I mean, is it very, very different what he does, principles, and way you're doing things from where you were used to?
I think every coach is different. Every coach is unique, and BJ obviously has his own, philosophy on the game and the way he sees things. And I think personally, I connect with him very well in the way we both see the game. So I think in terms of his approach, it's very democratic. We like to all get involved. We like to all, be free to kind of speak our opinion, and it's a very constructive place. So I think, from what I'm used to, it's of course different. It's always going to be different, but it's something that I really enjoy.
Now, when it comes to, when you compare, I don't know if you can do that because they're different teams, different environments and everything. You have a game like the one in Philly, the game, the first half in Charlotte, and then the first half in Seattle. It looks like there's a different team playing all the time. It's just because of the rival, or you think there's something that the team needs to do to keep that in a more level way? Yeah,
I think going into the Philly game, we approached it very maturely. We knew it wasn't going to be a game we're going to dominate with the ball. It's an away game. Philly have a good atmosphere, and I think going into the Charlotte game was a similar approach, but they allowed us to play a lot more free. And you saw obviously their reaction in the second half when they kind of stepped up the press, and the atmosphere kind of got the better to us. And then obviously the Seattle game was just not ideal and not what we want to do in terms of a mentality point of view. So I think obviously our intentions in terms of how we want to play are always the same. We want to be the same team, but it's just a matter of getting our mindset right for each occasion. And when we go away, it's very different. So I think we just need to be more consistent with our mindset going away from home and making sure that we execute that part of the game.
Patrick, how, depending on who you're paired with, if it's Gaston, if it's Eddie, how does your approach change? Is there a shift in, okay, I'm going to do this differently because I'm with this guy?
Not really, no. Obviously, I want to play true to myself, and I don't want to have to adjust because there's another player there. And obviously, they're both very talented players, So that kind of allows me to be more of myself than it does having to adjust, because I know I can rely on them and I know I can trust them. So yeah, honestly, whoever I'm paired with, whoever the coaching staff selects, there's just that complete trust in each other that we've developed, in pre-season and on the training pitch, that we can be more of ourselves and bring the qualities that we have to the game.
For you, I know it's a couple months away, but how important is it for you to get a run of games looking at World Cup qualifying?
Yeah, obviously I've had a bit of a national team taste last season, and that's, on my bucket list too, to be included in the World Cup, and one of the reasons why I kind of came to the MLS, because it'll help me facilitate that a lot better, and yeah, to have a good run of games and be playing well. I think that's the most important thing. There's a difference between just playing and playing well. That'll give me every opportunity to be able to be selected for the national team and contribute to qualification 1, and then going into next year, I think if we can be on a team and a winning team, which is what we're capable to do, that's also going to help my chances being selected there.
We'll go to Ben on Zoom.
Yeah, hey, Patrick. I think it's probably widely accepted that Seattle are one of the best teams in MLS over the last decade. I'm just curious if you noticed anything that they did differently playing against them, or if there was anything that stood out just about how they approached the game.
I think, yeah, Seattle were a good team, and I think we're also a good team. So in that perspective, I don't think the scoreline reflects our quality. In terms of the way they played, I thought that they were good. Like, honestly, it's really hard to go through and decipher the whole entire game. What they did tactically, they kind of had a lot of bodies in the midfield. I felt like myself and Gaston, specifically in the first half, we were doing a lot of running, trying to cover, almost 5-6 players in those pocket areas. So I think that's where they were kind of able to get the advantage over us. But I think in the end, it wasn't necessarily a tactical loss, more of a moment's loss. Just a brief 15-minute period of poor box defending and poor transitional moments kind of cost us the whole entire game.
That actually leads perfectly to my next question. It feels like you guys have done a really good job in stretches, kind of controlling the momentum of the game.
Yeah.
But then there have maybe been individual moments where either the finish hasn't been there, or maybe a little defensive lapse has happened and let the other team in the game. How do you feel like that needs to be cleaned up? How do you kind of approach trying to fix that?
Yeah, I think over the course of the season so far, I think we have been very good defensively, especially in terms of moments. This is just hopefully a one-off. We've addressed it as a team, and we've come together, and we just need to remember what we're playing for, and just make sure we're looking at the details in training and tidying all those things up, because it's a fine margin in this sport, and I think we need to make sure we're on top of those things.
Go ahead, Nick.
Patrick, obviously Walker's in the concussion protocol, but as for you as a midfielder, when it comes from transitioning to, getting the ball, receiving it from the defender, going into the midfield and transitioning to the offensive side of the ball, how has that been, I guess, a challenge for you? Because if you're either paired with Gaston Brugman or Eddie Tex or whoever, it seems like you got a bunch of different puzzle pieces you got to connect in your head in the middle of the game.
Yeah, obviously, having Walker is very important. He's our leader, he's our captain, he's also a really good communicator. So that kind of gives us a little bit more confidence in transitioning when we can and can't go. I think Jason has done a fantastic job since coming in, and obviously when I play on that right side of the midfield, or right six, he's obviously my main communicator, and his English isn't amazing, but I think he's doing a great job at communicating. We just got to make sure that there are levels to the physical and verbal communication. What's our physical communication? How tight are we? Are we connected enough so that we can read plays and we can react properly? And I think that the Seattle game wasn't a good example of that. We weren't connected enough. But then if you look at other games like the Portland game, I think the first half of the Charlotte game, there have been moments where verbal communication isn't as important. So it's just about managing that, and I've developed a relationship with Jason now, and Andy as well, who helps me there. And if we're just all energetic and we're all confident enough in each other, we can achieve it.
I guess in the short amount of time, what have you and Jason, I guess, try to create a better chemistry with it is, if it is communication and so forth? What have you guys worked on between last game into this one?
Yeah, I think it's just little key words, left, right, up, step, hold. Those things go a long way. I obviously I'm responsible for my own job. He's not responsible for where I go and everything I do. But if he can help me out the slightest bit, which he has been doing, he's doing an amazing job. So yeah.
Last one for me, Patrick. Obviously, when you came to Nashville, you had the celebration. Josh had a car's little foxtrot. He made the move from Canterbury to Paramount this past offseason. You have a new celebration. You're going to stick with the same one?
Nah, I'm going to have to get rid of that one because I'm a Doggies fan, which is Canterbury Bulldogs. So that one's out.
Crichton somewhere in the mix?
Yeah, maybe, something like that.
Appreciate it.
No worries.
Patrick, just very quickly, with the time difference, your games should be on Apple kind of in a favourable time for folks back in Australia to watch you. Just keen on do you have a regular group of viewers who are watching on Apple? And is there anywhere we can shout out any particular places that might be tuned in that we can give a mention to in the broadcast, or even if it's just friends and family watching at their homes?
Yeah, my family are always watching. My friends are always watching from their homes because it's a Sunday morning and they don't have work. So, that's usually the local spot, just at their homes, just chilling out with a coffee. So, yeah.
Where particularly is it outside Sydney?
Southwest Sydney. You can say that.
Okay.
Southwest Sydney.
1, 2, 3, 4. Start accelerating. Jump again. 1, 2, 3, 4. Accelerate. Short. Thanks to the other side. Accelerate. He said 1, 4, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Correction, 7, 8. Hey, Jacob. Keeper. Take roll.